Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video where today we'll return with round 2 of the F1 2000 career mode. Yes, we're back this weekend here for the Shanghai International at the Chinese Grand Prix. Of course, if you missed out on the video that went live last Friday from Albert Park, Australia, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. It was quite an interesting one. It was a weird return to this series, I must admit, but for us and BAR, it was not a bad one either. We took home the dub ahead of Rubens Barrichello and Alexander Wurz there. Mika Salo with a huge result for Arrows means they are currently ahead of Ferrari in the championship standings as well. Damon Hill, Nick Heidfeld on debut, as well as our teammate Jan Magnussen able to score points as well there. So it was a rather weird one. Like I said, go back, check it out. Strategy ended up being a rather strange one to kick-start the year. But it means that, yeah, we've started the year in the best way possible, and of course maybe, just maybe, we could try and fight for the World Championship this season. Definitely still McLaren and Ferrari that have a huge pace advantage though, so we're going to have to be careful as we head back this weekend to Shanghai. Of course, if you're new, I just want to say as well a massive thank you. We ticked over 131,000 subscribers in the last couple of days as well, so of course the next goal, 132k, so if you're watching this and you haven't clicked that big red button, it would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, let's head out then onto the Shanghai circuit, where hopefully we can actually qualify this time. Well, here we are then heading into qualifying for round 2 of the year here from Shanghai, and I figured out it was me being a moron in the last episode of this series. Basically, if you're playing this mod as well and you're finding that it's forcing you onto the wet tyres for qualifying, even when quite clearly it's dry, restart the session and just head straight out onto the track. It's a bit of a weird graphical bug, but as you can see, we are now on the dry compounded tyres, so as long as you just head, you know, once you get into the pit lane, you just click straight to car, it should be fine. So at least we know now we can do one-shot qualifying throughout the rest of the season. And I must admit, yeah, Shanghai really does work with these old traction control era cars as well, especially through the second snail section. You can really lean on it and feel like you're getting the maximum out of it. I've got no idea actually where we should be qualifying, to be completely honest, so it's going to be a bit of an interesting one by the end of the session. Now, of course, we actually get a decent representative. You can see we're about a second away from David Coulthard, who has just moved up fastest on the board. It's all a little bit wide there as we try and make our way out of the snail section. Get that power down as early as you can. And like I said, with the traction control, you can absolutely mash your foot to the floor there and carry the speed out onto the back straight. Almost touching towards 200 miles an hour there as you spot the braking about 125 meters out. And there, you've got to be really, really careful through the hairpin that you don't light up on the exit like I did right there. That's exactly what you've got to be careful of. And we've gone and ruined our qualifying then with one more corner to go. Where are we going to end up on the grid? It is Pedro De La Rosa that claims pole for Ferrari. We end up only P16. Well, there we go. Pedro De La Rosa, by half a tenth of a second, claims the pole over David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher, almost half a second away there ahead of Mika Hakkinen. I think, yeah, had we not messed that run up, we could have probably been around the pace of Johnny Herbert and Jacques Villeneuve there. But you can see, yeah, we lost so much time towards the end of the lap. We end up all the way down in P16. Even the arrows of Mika Salo went clear of me in the end there. So, yeah, we're going to be lining up right towards the rear of the field. Just Button, Nick Heidfeld setting identical times in their Minardis. But we've got to try and move forward as we head into the race.
It's time to find out which driver is up to the task of claiming the Chinese Grand Prix. We're here in Shanghai. We start a lap here at Shanghai with the long, difficult right-handers of turns 1 and 2, the first of 16 corners that make up this 3.3-mile circuit. The incredibly long back straight provides the best passing opportunity of the lap, with speeds in excess of 200 miles per hour before the braking zone of turn 14. Anthony Davidson also joins me in the commentary box today. Let's talk about Mr. Monaco. They're starting towards the back of the field today in a car that is fast. So they'll be disappointed, won't they?
They'll have a sinking feeling as they look up from the cockpit and realise they're in a different postcode to the start line for sure. But the one positive they can hold on to is that the car is quick and they can make their way through the field.
After the 3 points finish last race. Let's aim to keep the momentum going.
Well, the sky is certainly looking very overcast here in Shanghai, and that is why rain's still predicted to happen later on in the afternoon today. So it's going to be a very difficult one. But, like we learnt last time out, the dry tyres can hang on pretty well, even in full wet conditions. So it might be that nobody has to make the switch over to the wet tyres. I thought I disabled the rain, but apparently not. Must have forgot to do that. So let's wait and see what we can do then here on the grid. 5 red lights ready for the Chinese Grand Prix. Foot to the floor. And it's going to be lights out. And away we go there as all the traction bog just kicks in a little bit. Charlotte Lacey immediately will say thank you very much as we make our way down in towards turn 1. So does Damon Hill, 1997 world champion. But we've just got to try and stay out of trouble then, as we'll try and find an avenue around the outside of a couple of cars at that first corner. Just going to get a little bit worried about getting chopped in on. Have got to be so careful with this damage model. Any kind of contact can be the end of your race. It's still side by side with Jeanna Lacey out through turn 2 and turn 3. Down the inside of a couple more cars. We'll have a look, but again, just having to back out of it there. But we will complete the move back on Jean. So back to where we started then off the start of this one. That is really important early on. As you can see, Trulli and Alexander Wirtz there, wheel to wheel through the next corner. Wirtz, of course, started the year in the best way possible. But again, a bit like myself, they struggled with qualifying. Yeah, everybody just trying to be very measured on lap 1. It feels a lot more like real life when the damage is like that. Yep, you can see Wirtz again trying... Oh, there we go. Wirtz is gone. That's what I'm talking about. That small amount of contact can make all the difference. And we've got a safety car. Well, that should probably go to show you just how brutal the damage model is on this game. Alexander Wirtz, yeah, tiny bit of contact. And that makes all the difference. And that's why we have to be so much more cautious on lap 1 than we are in some of our other series on the channel. But yeah, back to go green flag racing once again then. It is still Pedro De La Rosa leading the way, but it looks like Häkkinen has got the jump on Michael Schumacher in that second Ferrari car then. So clearly the German maybe having a little bit of a hangover from his championship success last season. Admittedly, it is still very early on in the campaign, but as we try and build up some temperature in the tyres, looks like rain is meant to be arriving pretty soon.
By 4.4 seconds.
Yeah, obviously still quite a few places behind Johnny Herbert, but trying to get the engine temperature back to where it should be. How's the grip looking around the outside of Jarno Trulli? Hopefully we can try and get it hooked up this time round. And yeah, just as the AI space out a little bit more, hopefully it's going to make it easier to pick off cars there. As you can see, Fisichella in the second of those Benettons really struggling to put the power down out of turn 1. So maybe we can try and have a look around his outside as well. They're wheel to wheel down at the hairpin. And maybe if we could just get the power down on the exit. You can see Fizzy as well doing a pretty good job there. We're even, but we're on the inside. And often, well, with these lower grip cars, being on the inside is the most important thing. As the rain has now arrived here in Shanghai, how is that going to affect things over the next few laps? Well, it does make me chuckle, the fact we don't seem to get any wet races inside F124, but as soon as we come to a series...
There's a gap beginning to form.
Yeah, as soon as we come to a series where the cars are much more difficult to drive, even with the ABS... Well, sorry, just the traction control, isn't it? We obviously end up with just wet race back-to-back. Around the outside of Salo down at turn 1, but you can just see again... Especially when the track starts getting a little bit slippery, traction control was not sophisticated in the year 2000. It was a bit more like an on-off switch, and that's exactly the kind of moment where it'll really catch you out. Well, making our way then down the back straight, you can see everybody now really concertinaing up. The grip levels beginning to drop, and that's starting to make things very interesting there as Barrichello tries to have a look down the inside of his teammate Jan Magnussen there. We're going to try and look around the outside of the pair of them. 3 wide with the Jaguars off the penultimate corner. There is no way this ends up going well for any of us, so I'm going to back out as they're into the pit lane. So a few drivers already then deciding it's time to pit in this Grand Prix. And now you can see, yeah, look at that, De La Rosa in. We're up back into 6th place then of this race. But Ralf Schumacher now as well, just in front of me. But look how much grip we've got, able to attack down at turn 1. I've only just realised as well, for whatever reason, we seem to have 2 Alexander Wirtz in this game, which is a little bit odd. So, Benetton Wirtz is out. Williams Wirtz is fine. Might have to edit that ready for the next episode, because that's a little bit peculiar. Oh, we got yellows out. I think someone else around us is gone. Might be one of the Ferraris there. I can just see a big chunk of front wing down as Coulthard actually losing the place, maybe gaining the place over Michael Schumacher. But yeah, I mean, look at us all having to crawl around at the moment. Problem is, I'm not convinced the wet tyres are going to be that much better as all verts. I mean, there's just no grip. There is no grip whatsoever. Shanghai is always a notorious circuit for it anyway. As you can see, David Coulthard not able to get the power down either. And we're going to thread our way down the middle there. It's a BAR1-2. So for whatever reason, whenever it starts to rain inside this game, BAR absolutely come alive. And I think, yeah, we're going to have to box the end of this lap anyway. I mean, this is just impossible to drive at the moment. As down into the hairpin we go. And we got another safety car.
Reduce your pace. Keep your delta number positive as we form up.
And Schumacher's gone. What's happened to Michael Schumacher? Let's ride on board then with Michael Schumacher down into the hairpin, trying to get the car stopped and just into the back of David Coulthard. It doesn't look like major damage for the Ferrari, but that is enough to send him out of this Grand Prix. And I mean, that safety car timing, I don't think could have worked out much better for us if we wanted it to. Pedro De La Rosa still obviously getting a huge undercut by being on those dry tyres earlier on. But it might stop quite a few other cars from jumping us in the pit lane here. And you can see, yes, we're going to move over onto the wets. How well are they going to last at the second half of this race? I guess that's the other big question. This team a little bit slow to get them on. There we go. So where are we going to be then as we make our way out the pit lane? I think we're still up in like P4. Frenson's going to go past. Salo's going to go past as well as Magnussen. So we're up to 7th then. We haven't really lost out. Well, 2 safety cars inside the first 10 laps, but both of them just for single car retirements here has meant that there's still a lot of cars in the running as we're about to go green flag racing once again. Our teammate Johnny Herbert running up in the podium places. Is he going to be able to keep up with the Ferraris and McLarens at the front of the field then? Tyre wear as well is going to be something we're going to have to manage again. Already up to 13% just sat under the safety car. And we need to try and get this first set of wets about another 9-10 laps as well there. Obviously, we've only got the 2 sets. We don't quite know exactly how long they're going to last. I mean, look at this. Everybody basically grinding to a halt. But Mika Salo again looking like he's having a really good time out of it in the arrows. As we're going to drop back a little way through the final corner. That might not be the end of the world, though, for us. Immediately see everybody else so tentative as they try and roll on the throttle out of that final corner. And I can't really see a lot, but apparently it's going to be green flag racing once again. Are we going to be able to move our way up and continue gaining places? Already we can see Salo struggling just a little bit. There's Jan Magnussen in that Jaguar. Oh, I could have had a look down the inside there, but it's just not worth the risk right now. Frentzen as well, the man that replaced me, hounding our teammate there for that final podium place. So 2 by 2 they go through the first couple of corners. With Vizcarra and Coulthard right behind me there. As you can see, Magnussen trying to look around the outside of Salo down in towards the hairpin. Oh, Mika locks up, but he just about parks it on the apex on the exit. And you can see all this constant tearing up has left us vulnerable there. As Giancarlo now trying to look down my inside. No, thinks better of that as we send it in very, very aggressively through the first part of the S's. We've got more yellows out. No idea who that is, but we're not going to worry about it too much. Around the outside of Jan Magnussen. And up into 6th place we go then. What would be a final points paying position back in 2000, but not in this series. There, but look at that Magnussen coming back at me on the exit. And this is what the traction control allows you to do. It does promote some pretty good racing, as we'll immediately try and switch him again down the inside. Slow it down onto the apex will go. Salo's been given a chance to breathe, but we do hang on to 6th for now. Bit like our Jordan car last year then. This BAR, very quickly I'm learning, it's probably the best of the rest. Behind, you know, the McLarens and the Ferraris still. So, obviously we were able to kind of half launch a championship fight last season. Maybe with a bit more luck going our way this time round, we could try and get ourselves in that fight. We saw Frentzen able to utilise that perfectly in real life in 1999. Just fell away from him right at the end of the year. But yeah, you can see Salo really struggling in that Arrows car. Trying to look down the inside into the next corner. Whoa, we don't get away with contact like that very often, but Mika Salo, very firm defending. Mika Salo was known as a bit of a super sub back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I tell you what, with a full-time gig in that Arrows, He could genuinely score points quite regularly this year. I mean, look at that, running. I mean, he's not even going slower than Frentzen in front in the Jordan. He genuinely belongs in that position right now. Australia might not have been as big a fluke as we initially thought it was. Salo is having the time of his life in a team's car that really struggled last year as well. I had to send it to the inside, though. Actually, I broke myself there slightly, but we get the car stopped. Wasn't actually what I was intending on going for, but I guess we'll claim the place. Well, as we cross half distance then, we're still mainly worried about the tyres, but I'll be honest, it's quite nice actually to have a bit of breathing room. We're just kind of watching as Frentzen and Johnny Herbert there battle it out for that final podium place. I think De La Rosa and Hakkinen at the front of the field as well, just slowly but surely pulling away, as you would come to expect. But tyre management a lot easier here than it was last time around in Albert Park, Australia. Salo is still hanging on to P6 behind me. As Team want us into the pits, like I said, we need to try and get these tyres a few laps further. But Salo is genuinely my hero in this series so far. He's probably doing a better job at arrows than I was able to in our debut season. So it could be worth trying to box a little bit earlier then, back onto a fresh set of the wet tyres if the team think the rain's going to stop. I'll be honest, I'm not really convinced I want to risk it still as well. I think Ralf Schumacher's had a bit of an issue. Jan Magnussen now moving back up into 7th place of this race. We've got no one out though, so I'm not going to worry too much. Oh no, there we go. It's not a particularly exciting one. I think that's Damon Hill, who's just had to pull over to the side of the road. Oh no, he actually collides there with David Coulthard. I think he's only got himself to blame in that incident. But yep, Damon Hill, 1997 world champion at this Grand Prix. But of course, as soon as I do that, it is going to return to green flag racing then. But that hopefully is not going to make too much of a difference if we can get this second set of wets comfortably to the dry period. Of course, when I say 1997, I actually obviously mean 1996 world champion Damon Hill. My Formula 1 knowledge sometimes lacks me when I'm obviously trying to commentate as well. Especially in a car like this that is such a handful no matter what's going on. Traction control really doesn't make much of a difference. And I think, yeah, most of the other runners then, their old wet tyres are going to be no match for our new ones, especially if they're in a Minardi like Jenson Button is. I think he just wants to see himself through to the checkered flag. And apparently he could get the switch back on me. Luckily we'll have the grit round the outside there to make the move happen. But JB, he's gone far further than he did last time. Herbert then clearly likes my pit strategy this race. He's immediately dived in just one lap later, so we'll be interested to see whether we can get the switch on him. Obviously, we've got these tyres up to temperature as well, and we are just really working them off of this restart there as through the final corner. It's not the longest pit lane in the world, but it's also not the shortest either there. As back down towards turn 1. Are we going to be ahead of Herbert? No, not quite. Frentzen even still is ahead of me, but that gap has come down just a little bit more. As we get on the grass, hang on to it. It's a bit like Rallycross. We're still going to try and navigate our way around some of the slower cars. There's Jean Lacey now, you can see getting jumped by our teammate just up the road. But again, this is not easy to do inside this mod. I mean, nothing is easy to do inside this game mode. So again, huge moment of oversteer through that final corner. We are seeing basically all of the remaining cars, though, into the pit lane then. So everybody has taken that first sets of wets as far as they wanted to. It's actually taken a lot of time out of our out of Frentzen there as well. But unfortunately, that's all just started to open up again. I guess it's just wait and see when the dries, when it's ready to make that switch. And maybe we can try and get ourselves back-to-back podiums. Oh, Frentzen! Frentzen, big error! Big error by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and we're now going to try to look around the outside of him as we make our way through the double left-hander. You can see he's just about able to get the power back down again, and he's going to immediately try and cut me off. Luckily, we'll read it like a book, and again, just like we had to do earlier on, we send it down the inside of another AI car there, kind of putting the faith in them that they won't just drive into me there. But Frentzen, just get out on the wet stuff on the exit, and he will shoulder me back out and reclaim that P4 position. This all works out beautifully for our teammate Johnny Herbert, who is just able to pull away a little bit here. It's even in the slipstream. That Jordan is an absolute missile in a straight line. Breaking down. Don't run into the back of him. We don't want to do a Michael Schumacher. And Frentzen will cheat death this time. Well, we're definitely getting back towards a dry tyre here at the moment. Its circuit is getting better and better. And one thing I hadn't noticed really was just how well Williams were doing a little bit further behind. Villeneuve and Alexander Wurz, yes, the Williams version of Alexander Wurz, are closing in both on myself and Frentzen right now. And even Johnny Herbert is starting to struggle. Of course, as the track gets drier, downforce is a little less important.
Drying out quite soon. Mind you don't burn out your tyres.
We have got to be careful with this set of rubber as well, but we're probably not a million miles away from that switch to the dries. But Frentzen now just beginning to fly. I mean, now we're just trying to keep the tyres cool as we make our way down the back straight, but there's a tiny part of me hoping that Johnny Herbert isn't going to peel into the pit lane this lap, otherwise we are probably going to lose out a fair old chunk of time. Oh, not if we do that before we get to the pit lane though, as are we going to see Herbert in? No, we're not. Herbert stays out, Frentzen stays out. So nobody else thinks it's time to make the switch yet. I absolutely do there, as looking at the rears on pit lane entry. Got to be careful of that. Villeneuve opts to stay out. Coulthard as well, opting to stay out here as Mika Salo. He's still inside that top 10. I just think that's absolutely incredible by Mika Salo here. As 5 laps to go then of this GP. Dry tyres going back on the car to see us through to the flag. 2.9 second stop's not bad. Because, I mean, yeah, these V10s as well just sound absolutely incredible. There is a Lacey running one place outside that top 10 as well.
These tyres through to the end now.
There is no grip. No grip on pit exit, but hopefully we're going to be able to get some temperature up pretty quickly. No. A very lazy spin down in turn 1. And maybe this wasn't quite the right call there. We'll try and get back on the road in the tidiest way possible. Oh, this is just terrible, though. We've got no grip, no traction whatsoever. Let's try to put the power down. It is impossible. I mean, there's no water left on this track at the moment. I've got no idea why there is so little grip in this car, but our podium hopes might be completely evaporating right in front of me here. I can only hope as well, yeah, that the AI just struggle as much as I have on their outlap. I can only assume because of the cold tyres, that's what's making the difference. But if AI can get to the end of the race on their set of wets, it might not be a bad call. Just double check with the team. Johnny Herbert's dived into the pit lane again, but he's come back out on a set of wets.
Behind is 6.8 seconds.
No idea how he's come back out on a set of wets. He was probably better off just sticking on the tyres he was on. But with 4 laps to go then, this race is not over. We could see the AI really start to struggle. As, well, I mean, I already am, but these dry tyres are getting there. Oh, don't say the AI are going to fall foul of the tyre bug again there. Surely it's time for dries for our teammate Johnny Herbert. As we've got a few more cars into the pit lane as well there, so not too sure who this is opting to stay out. Must be Jarno Trulli there as Herbert in again. So we're going to get the jump on our teammate. Are we going to get the jump on anybody else though? No. So we're barely back inside the top 10, but now we are going seconds a lap faster than the rest of the AI. Once again, the end of a race in this series is delivering the drama. And this time around, yeah, Jarno Trulli, I'm sure he'd love his first career points at the end of this weekend. Might not get that opportunity, though, depending on what happens there. As I mean, look at how much grip we've got. Round the outside we'll go. And we're going to move back up then into P9. How many more places can we claim? Well, the other thing we have got to be careful of is Johnny Herbert's one of the only other drivers that has opted back to the dries already. And he's going quicker than me right now. I'm not sure I'll have enough to get back to me there. As pretty much everybody else now, I think, has decided it is time for the dries. So I don't think we made a bad call in this race. Where are we going to re-emerge then? David Coulthard is still out ahead of me. So I think we have been overcut here. But Coulthard and Villeneuve, obviously, you've got to get those tyres up to temperature. And that is still not particularly easy. We've got yellows. We've got yellows out. Someone's got problems very late on in the afternoon. Who on earth is it? I can see greens. No, there's still yellow flags out. I think it might be Jacques Villeneuve. And Jacques Villeneuve late on in the day might be out of it. No, they've got... It's Frentzen. Frentzen's struggling. So suddenly now, it is Villeneuve, Coulthard and myself battling it out for the final podium place. And I can only assume Frentzen was trying to drag those wet tyres to the end, and he's had a puncture. Heartbreak for Jordan, but suddenly now, the podium fight is back on. Oh, Coulthard's slowing. What's going on? Coulthard's gone. Don't say he's run out of fuel. He just couldn't see a puncture on him or anything like that, but David Coulthard now out of the Grand Prix. So no idea what's happened to the McLaren, man. Johnny Herbert's going to move past him as well there. So looks like BAR are still going to be scoring good points by the end of the afternoon. Jacques Villeneuve makes his way through the final couple of corners to start the last lap. And I don't think I've got the pace to match the Williams. And on to the final lap we go now. Häkkinen's got problems. Mika Häkkinen running slowly as we make our way up through the S's. And I think both McLarens have run out of fuel here, as down the inside of Villeneuve we're going to go as well then. Of course, the weird thing is with these cars is that with the traction control, they actually burn more fuel right now there, as Villeneuve trying to get a jump on me. De La Rosa, his first ever Formula 1 Grand Prix victory, and it is going to come with Ferrari, but we're now battling with Jacques Villeneuve through the final few corners of this Grand Prix, and I can't believe McLaren, I think when it rains, their car is just not as fuel efficient as it needs to be here, as out of the snail section we're going to go one last time, side by side with Jacques Villeneuve. That Williams is so ridiculously fast in a straight line though. BMW power working very, very well for them. Are we going to be able to have a look for anything? No, we're not. And we might have temporarily moved up into P2 on the last lap of this race. But through the final corner, a dominant display by Pedro De La Rosa. Jacques Villeneuve is going to come through for P2. It is another podium for us. Heartbreak for McLaren.
There'll be many smiles at the factory after that one. A great race and a real team performance to take the win here in Shanghai. So Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
Ferrari are at it again, an excellent performance at today's Grand Prix, and they're certainly a team that know what they're doing out there. And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. Well, the gap at the top of the championship has been cut down after a difficult race today for our championship leader. Some amazing talents out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
I have to give it to Mr. Monaco. They fought so hard and had incredible pace at times, so I don't think anyone else did a better job today.
Well, 3 and 4 stop Grand Prix up and down the order there, but Pedro De La Rosa, 47 seconds clear. That's the kind of winning margin you used to get back in the early 2000s, and it was often a Ferrari that would take a win with that kind of landmark victory there. Jacques Villeneuve P2, though, a huge return for him and BMW Williams in their all-new partnership there, with BAR, P3 and P4 for myself and Johnny Herbert. Means with the team still able to pick up big points this weekend. The same can be said for Arrows. 5th for Mika Salo. He just pipped Häkkinen at the end there, as I think both McLarens had to go into fuel saving there, as Jean Alesi comes through for P7 ahead of Wirtz, Hill and Giancarlo Fisichella rounding out our top 10 there come the checkered flag. Yeah, I don't know why I've got 2 Alexander Wirtz. I need to make sure that I check the text file as well inside this mod. But Barrichello, both Schumachers, and the second of the Wirtz drivers all failed to see the checkered flag. That means in terms of the championship then, our gap at the top now has been cut down to just 3 points. Salo, by finishing both races well, is up to P3 in the Drivers' Championship. I don't think any of us predicted that for Arrows at the start of the campaign there. Williams Wirtz is up in P4 ahead of Villeneuve there, with Barrichello still ahead of Johnny Herbert. Damon Hill, Häkkinen, Jean Alesi there rounding out our top 10 there, with Coulthard, Nick Heidfeld, Magnussen and Fisichella all with points on the board. Constructors-wise, we got a 17-point lead over Ferrari and Williams there. Arrows again, P4 ahead of Jaguar and McLaren as well, as it's only Jordan that have yet to score points in the opening 2 Grand Prix. That one, though, was a lot better. It was kind of a lot more what we wanted to see from this series. Good, crazy racing, but not ridiculous as well there. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed, and we'll be back very soon when Formula 1 returns ready for the Dutch Grand Prix.